This is Rummy's Corner. Why did Mike Tyson pay Lennox Lewis $4 million in a step-aside deal back in 1996? A lot of boxing fans are aware of the fact that Lennox got the payday for allowing Tyson to face WBA champion Bruce Seldon in September 96. But then Tyson vacated the WBC belt almost immediately after the fight. So why did Mike Tyson pay Lennox Lewis $4 million to step aside if he was just going to drop the WBC belt right after anyway? I will try and answer that question here, while providing what I believe is the relevant background information. Once upon a time, Iron Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet. He was the undisputed world heavyweight champion. He beat Trevor Berbick to win the WBC belt in November 1986. He beat James Bone Crusher Smith for the WBA in March 1987. And then he beat Tony Tucker in August 1987 to win the IBF belt, securing all three major belts of his day. In June 1988, he solidified his claim as undisputed champion when he beat undefeated lineal heavyweight champion Michael Spinks. One by one, Tyson had earned his distinction as the undisputed heavyweight king, and all the while he had been defending his various belts against guys like Pinklin Thomas and Larry Holmes, the Easton Assassin, and then we also had one Frank Bruno. In 1990, Tyson had his eyes set on the undefeated former undisputed world cruiserweight champion, Evander Real Deal Holyfield. Their showdown seemed inevitable, but those best-laid plans were abruptly derailed in boxing's biggest upset of all time, when Iron Mike was knocked out by his tune-up opponent, Tokyo Douglas. Holyfield in turn beat Buster Douglas to become the new undisputed world heavyweight champion. In 1991, when Tyson was ranked as the number one contender by all three alphabet bodies, Donovan Razor Ruddock was ranked number 2 by all three sanctioning belts. The winner was supposed to face Evander, but the controversial ending of their fight was considered premature, so a rematch would settle matters, and once again, Iron Mike beat Razor Ruddock. The date was set, November 8th, 1991. Evander Holyfield would put his undisputed heavyweight crown on the line against former undisputed champion Iron Mike Tyson. It never happened. Instead, Tyson went to prison, and Holyfield would go on to become involved in an epic war with Riddick Big Daddy Bo the following year. Bo beat Holyfield in an instant classic during their first of 3 fights. That was actually a part of a 4-man heavyweight tournament. The week before, Lennox Lewis blasted Razor Ruddock out in 2 rounds, and Ruddock was the guy many, if not most, viewed as the favorite going into this tournament, in large part because of his strong showings against Iron Mike back in 1991. Bo and Lewis never came to terms. Bo threw the WBC belt into a trash can, and Lennox was awarded the WBC belt without having to fight for it. In the middle of the entire Bo Holyfield saga, Lennox lost in a shocking upset against Oliver McCall, which derailed plans for a planned fight between Bo and Lewis in 1994. By August 1995, Mike Tyson was back, and he beat Peter McNeely in his first fight in more than 4 years. Bo went on to stop Holyfield in their third fight in November 95, and then in December 95, Tyson had his second bout out of prison, where he looked very rusty in a winning effort against Buster Mathis Jr., whom he stopped in 3. In March 1996, Mike Tyson challenged his former victim, reigning WBC heavyweight champion Frank Bruno. Iron Mike looked great in this one, easily his best performance since being released from prison. Tyson won by 3rd round stoppage, marking him as a 2-time heavyweight champion. This is where the story of the step-aside deal really begins. At that time, Lennox Lewis was the WBC #1 mandatory contender. Indeed, Lennox was supposed to get the chance to face the winner of the Tyson-Bruno rematch, but Don King wanted to recreate history, and the setting was ripe for this to happen. You need to remember, back at this time, there were still an awful lot of people who believed that Tokyo Douglas got a little lucky against Tyson, and that it was a bit of a fluke. And this belief was firmly held by many throughout Tyson's entire 4-year absence from the heavyweight landscape. When Tyson got out of prison, Don King was embracing the idea that Iron Mike would once again collect all of the belts, one by one, and reclaim his status as the baddest man on the planet. And a lot of people believe this is exactly what would happen. Instead of having Mike face his mandatory in Lennox, King wanted to stage a unification bout between Tyson and WBA champion Bruce Seldon. The dispute went to court, and the court sided with Lennox Lewis. But Lennox was a riskier proposition than the other Alphabet champions at that time. So the $4 million step-aside deal was made, a deal that was finalized in May 1996, 2 months after Tyson beat Bruno for the WBC, and less than a week after Lewis edged out a majority decision win against merciless Ray Mercer. Then the entire circumstances surrounding Tyson Selden were a bit mysterious. It was September 1996, months after the deal with Lewis had been made. Originally, it was scheduled as a unification bout, but in the end, on the billing, they referred to it as, quote, champion versus champion. Even though Selden's WBA belt was the only belt on the line. Tyson stopped Selden in round 1, and Tyson was technically the unified WBC WBA heavyweight champion. A few weeks later, Tyson vacated the WBC belt. So again, why the hell did Mike Tyson pay Lennox Lewis $4 million to step aside if he was just going to dump the belt anyway? The answer can be found in this May 17, 1996 article in the New York Times. Per the article, Lewis had been mandated by a New Jersey court to be Tyson's next opponent, but Tyson isn't quite ready for Lewis. His 3 fights since his return 14 months ago have been walkovers in which he has earned more than $60,000 a second. So Tyson settled with Lewis to step aside. As a part of the deal, Lewis will be permitted an interim fight, the September fight with Bo, and Tyson could go on to fight for the IBF title. So there you have it. At the time this article was written, the IBF was vacant, but that vacancy was filled when Michael Moore beat Axel Schultz a month after this piece was written, which paved the path to undisputed for Iron Mike in his post-prison career. He already had the WBC, he won the WBA from Selden a couple of months later, and he had a clear path to face the winner of the IBF vacancy, which wound up being Michael Moore. The stage was set perfectly for Iron Mike, and in some alternate reality, a Mike Tyson versus Michael Moore showdown for the undisputed heavyweight crown could have been a reality. So why did Tyson dump the WBC belt in September 96 after he had already paid Lennox $4 million? Amazingly enough, the answer to that question is one Andrew Galata. Oof, Maron. But it's true. If Bo had made easy work of Galata, the way most were expecting going into that one, then the long-awaited showdown between Bo and Lewis may have happened in September 96. But Galata's strong showing against Bo, despite being disqualified for repeated low blows, led to demand for Bo Galata 2. Where once again, Galata put up a very strong showing, but he was disqualified for repeated low blows. But once Bo was determined to prove Galata's performance in that first fight was a fluke, it killed the possibility of Bo Lewis. And Lewis wanted his shot at the WBC. If he wasn't going to get Bo per the agreement, he wanted his title shot, which he got and won in a rematch against his former conqueror, Oliver McCall, where Lennox won the WBC belt that was vacated by Tyson. For Lewis, the motivating factor to step aside from the easy $4 million, was to get a chance to face Riddick Bowe, the man he had beaten at the 1988 Olympics to earn Olympic gold. In the professional ranks, 4 different times Bowe and Lewis entered negotiations that resulted in no fight. 4 different times. First, when they couldn't reach terms and Bowe dumped the belt into a trash can. Then again in 1993 when Jesse the Boogeyman Ferguson derailed plans for a Bo Mercer showdown. Again, Bo and Lewis couldn't agree on money, so Bo defended against the Boogeyman. And then again, when Lewis was set to face Bo, it got derailed when Lennox was stopped by McCall. And finally here, Lennox and Riddick seemed destined to fight until they didn't. Lennox got his $4 million, and when he couldn't get the Bo fight, Tyson dumped the WBC so he could face Holyfield. Holyfield and Tyson had their own failed history of would-be matches. First when Tyson got upset against Tokyo Douglas, then again when Tyson's first victory against Ruddock was viewed as being controversial, and then finally when Tyson went to prison. At least in this case, that fight finally came together in November 1996, after Tyson had vacated the WBC. Holyfield defeated Iron Mike by 11th round stoppage to win the WBA belt, and Tyson would never win another championship contest for the rest of his career, including his final title fight, which came in June 2002 when Tyson and Lewis finally squared off, and Mike was stopped by Lennox in round 8. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real reason why Tyson vacated the WBC belt after paying Lewis $4 million in the famous step-aside deal. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy's Corner.